OP's fiancé left her out of nowhere 2 months after she gave birth to their child. Here's the full story. My fiancé and I were together 4 years. We got engaged around 10 months ago. We found out around a month later that I was pregnant. I was so scared, I didn't know what to think. The moment I told him though, he was so enthusiastic, which gave me so much confidence, and we figured we'd go through with it. He said we could wait till after I'd had the baby to get married. That way we wouldn't have to rush it before I started showing. And so our baby could be in the wedding too. He was the most caring and loving and loyal man during the pregnancy. My mom had a tough pregnancy with me and my siblings, so I worried mine would be too. It was pretty rough, but he stuck by my side every second. Not a moment went by that I worried he may leave or anything like that. I've always been someone who worries about that stuff, but he changed that. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl about 2 months ago. For a month he was amazing. He always offered to do stuff for me. Even when I said no and that I could do certain things, he insisted. He was so insistent on making me happy. I felt like the most loved person in the world. Not only that, but he adored our daughter. We had a tiny gender reveal party during the pregnancy, and he was so happy to see a girl, which isn't very common, I hear, with men. Around a month ago though, he started checking out. He was still loving and kind, so I didn't think much of it. I assumed he was getting burnt out from caring so much, so I started doing more to help out. I always was doing the most I can, but like I said, he was always insisting on helping more. And I figured that it was getting hard to insist on doing everything, so I gave him more breaks and thought that since he was always so caring, it was time I gave back. Yesterday he broke the news to me that he was leaving. He didn't want anything to do with me or our child. He has had a good job and said he'd pay child support monthly to me online, but that was the most amount of contact he wanted with me. The apartment we live in was originally mine, so he left to stay with a family member. I'm alone in the apartment with my daughter and the cat my fiancé and I adopted 3 years ago. He said I could keep him. I'm miserable. I'm trying to keep it together for my child. I don't want her to grow up with a crappy broken mom, so I will get better, if not for myself then for her. But would I be lying if I said this was gonna be one hard journey? I don't have the most amazing family. I cut a large majority of them off, and I've never had luck with friends. So all I have right now is my best friend, who I've had since middle school, to help. Thank the Lord for her. I'm so sorry he did this to you. As soon as you can, go after him for child support. Make it legal. Stay strong. Don't let him say he'll do it, even if he does for a while. You want legal papers stating exactly how much and how often he should be paying. Remember, this is devastating to you, but he's out there looking for someone else. And if he has a second family, this skunk will stop helping you and your daughter, or just stop for no reason. Protect yourself and child financially. Being a single mom is not always easy, but you got this. Don't let that situation crush you. Your daughter has the most amazing mom. You need to lawyer up and grieve later. 1. Whenever he gets a raise or better paying job, your daughter should get a raise in her check. It's not you being greedy, it's your daughter getting less than the bare minimum from her sperm donor pretend dad. It's all about her. So whenever he tries to make it about you, turn it around on him instead. Having a legal agreement is the only way you will know for sure that your daughter isn't being bullied around by her loser dad, more than what's already happening. 2. Some places dad has to help pay for daycare. You will need daycare or a babysitter when you work or educate yourself. It can be a major expense and is another reason you need a legal binding agreement and not just his promises and casual checks. 3. You need to brace yourself if he suddenly returns and is all apologetic. Don't sign any documents without consulting a lawyer first. I don't care if he has a doctor's notice as proof that he has postpartum depression. You still get a lawyer and a legal agreement. And you do not sign anything without it having been looked over. 4. You also need to sue for full parental rights, because your life will be hell whenever you need something for your daughter, and they want both parents to sign. How's that gonna happen when he will only speak over the internet? I'm so sorry that this happened to you. You need to get a good lawyer who will fight for you and your daughter. He doesn't get to deprive her of things she needs after he abandoned her. He might have been a biological parent, but he is not her father. Please allow yourself time to grieve for what has happened. But also I want you to remember that you are more than capable of raising your baby girl on your own, because you are already doing it. You are not broken. You are not crappy. You are a good mother and you deserve to be happy. I stopped my husband from committing suicide and he thinks I never knew his plans. Here's the full story. My husband and I are 28, we have 3 kids. He's the only boyfriend I've ever had. He's been with me since high school. He's always had low self-esteem. I do too, but not like he does. One day, we got new phones, maybe 7 years ago. I found out I can read his texts. He can see mine too, but he didn't know about it. This happened for like another 2 years. For his birthday and Christmas, I'd snoop around his texts and see if there's something he was talking about that he wanted. One day, around November, I was being nosy to see what I can get him for Christmas. I was pregnant with our second child at the time. I saw he was texting someone something suspicious, saying where can we meet, and I thought this was with another girl. I read them more and I found out he was buying medication. My husband and I don't even drink, so I freaked out. I wondered about how long this was going in for, if I even knew my own husband anymore. Turns out he was buying something that doesn't get you high, but kills you. I looked around everywhere. I tore our room apart and didn't find anything. I went through the search history and all his emails on his phone when he was asleep that night, and found out he was making arrangements for a specific date 3 months after I was due. He was looking at life insurance, which we have had since I'm a stay-at-home mom. He was even looking up how much it costs to be cremated. Once he got home, the first thing I did was sneak his phone and text that guy and say I'm no longer interested. If someone else tells you otherwise, it means someone else has my phone, and deleted that guy's number. I didn't want him to know I was snooping, but the thought of my husband not being around tore me. I remember being sick to my stomach and bawling in our room just thinking of the idea of not having him around. I love him more than life in itself. I would die for him and not even have to think about it. My husband is my entire world. That day on, I made sure he knew that, even if it meant embarrassing myself. I started bringing him flowers at work almost every day. When he would come through the door, I would screech with excitement and give him a hug and a smooch and tell him I missed him so much. And I couldn't stop thinking about him all day. When I was out with him, how beautiful and handsome he is. When he was around my friends, I'd say, look at my husband. He's so beautiful. I'd call him at work and ask how much longer until he's home. I got him to start going to therapy too. One night I woke him up because I was freaking out and couldn't sleep. I told him I had a nightmare. I said I had a dream he passed away. He said, why is that a bad thing? And I told him how he's my entire world, and other than our son and our other on the way, he's all I live for. He said, but things would be better if I was out of your hair. And I said, no, they wouldn't. If you left me, it would literally ruin my life. He said, not if you're financially well off. You'll be much better off. And I said I could have all the money in the world. It would mean nothing if I didn't have you. I'd much rather be homeless but still have you as my husband than be filthy rich and you be gone. And he said, are you serious? And I said, 100%. I'd sleep under a bridge if it meant I still got to sleep next to you. He said, I didn't know you felt that way, and I said I really do. I asked if I could go with him to therapy. He said yes. I told his therapist I think he has depression, and he admitted he might. He got a prescription, and it seemed to help him a whole lot. Even though it's been 5 years, I still do all those nice things for him, like call him handsome and bring him flowers. I don't ever want him to second guess for a second that he's my sunshine. Keep him talking about it if you can. For the longest time I didn't want to scare my husband, so I wasn't fully honest with him about my suicidal thoughts. They don't just disappear, not for me anyway. It's an ongoing battle. So in addition to saving his freaking life, you absolute beast of a wonderful wife, keep him talking. Let him know you can handle it, that he can always depend on you, and that if he needs more help, you're in it together. OP says it's been 5 years, but I totally agree with this. More often than not, mental health issues are ongoing battles that one fights on a daily basis. I don't know about OP's husband, but sometimes being told how important you are to someone isn't enough. I'm glad they're getting therapy and hopefully are better now, but some folks just don't feel like they deserve to be loved, for whatever reason. Aside from all this, I remember seeing Taylor Swift talk about addiction and quitting once, and said something along the lines of, it's an everyday battle that you have to fight, and most of the time you don't get a pat on the back for, it's invisible. I find it very applicable to depression as well. This is definitely one case where snooping on someone's phone or texts was the right answer. I'm so happy he is still here for you, OP. As a husband, I can't imagine how I'd feel if my wife suddenly started doing all that for me. This is love, and I wish you both a happy forever, OP. I'm glad you found out and were able to help him. I hope therapy brings him to a point where he recognizes his value, so you never have to go through this again. An entitled mother insists that I share my Nintendo Switch with her child on my flight. Here's the full story. The scene is a Southwest airline flight. I was sitting in a window seat next to 2 lovely women, and directly horizontal from us was an empty seat, a mom and her son. The flight was taking off. For those who don't know, you are required to stay seated and keep your seatbelts on for the beginning of the flight until the captain says otherwise. I was strapped in my seat and decided to take out my Nintendo Switch from my carry-on beneath my feet. Excuse me, ma'am. I didn't realize at first that the mother in the seats horizontal from me was trying to get my attention. She unbuckled her belt and moved to the empty seat by the aisle, closer to me. Ma'am, with the video game. I lifted my head, but the stranger next to me nudged me as well. That lady wants to get your attention, the woman next to me muttered. I turned my head to see this woman leaning across the aisle with her hands on the armrest of the aisle seat in my row. Sorry, she began. I just wanted to know if there was any way that my son could use that game for a little while. I'm so sorry, I began. My Nintendo Switch is just really important to me. I don't feel comfortable giving it to anyone I don't know. I don't even let my sisters play with it. I was going to continue, but the woman cut me off. Oh, my son's not like most kids, she replied. He's not destructive. His cousin has one of those and he knows how to play. She smiled and set her hand out. The two women seated next to me looked at me as if they were also in disbelief. I'm sorry, I said again. I just don't feel comfortable. I brought it for me. How old are you? The woman said with a huff, retracting her hand and slapping it on her lap. I'm 25, but I don't see how that matters, I replied, growing exceptionally uncomfortable. Well, she began, clearly sounding agitated. My son is 8. This is an hour and 45-minute flight and he just wants something to do. He can't see it for a few minutes. No, I am not comfortable with that. I'm sorry, but I'm expecting you to understand since this is my property. I put my head down and I unpaused my game, as to ignore anything she had further to say. Are you serious? She seemed genuinely livid. Well, sorry buddy, not everyone knows how to share, the woman said to the kid next to her. Her child started whining and kicking the seat in front of him. Thanks for this, she said to me. A sweet kid just wants to share with you and you're being ignorant about it. Before I even opened my mouth, one of the ladies in my row snapped back at her. How dare you bring that energy on this plane? She told you so kindly that she doesn't feel comfortable with passing her electronics to a stranger. The mother wasn't having it. She's an adult and can't share with a child for a few minutes of a nearly 2-hour flight. You should have brought something for him to do then, the woman in my row responded. It shut her up good. At the end of the flight, the woman collected her luggage from the overhead bins and said, I hope you're happy going against God's word, not sharing with a child. Some of the people around us giggled. I'm sure that they all overheard the drama at the beginning of the flight. I've come across some entitled people in my life, but this strange lady took the cake. Pretty ironic. She accused you of going against God's word when she was literally breaking the 10th commandment by coveting your Switch, and probably was planning to break the 8th by not giving it back. I'd be happy to stare them dead in the eye and tell them straight up I don't give a F about their kid. No reason to be polite to rude people and they can leave me the hell alone when they realize I won't play ball with them. I'm pretty convinced most of these fake polite entitled people are actually just scam artists and thieves trying to steal people's crap and claim it as their own, to be honest. Ask her how you are the bad one when she is too stupid to bring something for a young child to do on a long plane flight. It is after all the fruit of her loins, and she should be the one taking care of its needs. If she didn't want to have to deal with children, maybe she should not have had one. Sounds more like she is the bad one. What a piece of work. From the kid's reaction to being told no, that tells me how well behaved good he is. If it was that important to her, she should have brought him a game or something to do. She just didn't want to deal with that brat, and then try to blame it all on you because of his reaction. I'm glad your aisle makes stuck up for you and that you stuck up for yourself too. These entitled people make me so sick. Thank you so much.